UK Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak gives an update on his budgetary plans this week. However, things are not looking particularly good in the UK at the moment. Inflation is on track to reach 8%. And the problems with the increase in social security contributions and rising energy costs planned for April will not make the whole situation any easier. Although Sunak always says that he understands the problems of the little people and that he wants to do everything possible to make their lives easier, that doesn't sound very reassuring. The opposition Labour Party has called for a tax cut on fuel prices, but the finance minister has not commented on it. Sunak promised in February to help hard-hit households down their energy bills, but to date he has done nothing. He always talks about tax cuts in the future. In reality, taxes are likely to reach their highest level in 70 years. And the Minister of Finance also wants to stick to the planned increase in national insurance in April. That is, there are always many warm words, but no action that will really help people. The war in Ukraine will bring even more difficulties for people, especially those on low incomes. And this means that from April onwards, people on low incomes will be hit particularly hard. And since the Tory government's friends always say how much their government is doing for the UK and its citizens, I just want to stress that France, Sweden, Germany and Italy are acting contrary to the British government and do actually something. And while this government isn't treating people very well at the moment, the Treasury Secretary is complaining about P&O fares. As you already heard in one of my videos, these 800 employees were fired, and the Treasury Secretary says it's disgusting the way these employees are treated. Ultimately, the treatment of employees is only a consequence of Brexit, because this government wanted more freedom for companies there. The government wanted to lower the rights of employees after Brexit. And here's the first harvest of what this government has sown. You really have to say that Sunak is really only crying crocodile tears here. Brexit has always done some harm to the UK and is still a long way from the end of the road. In addition to all the problems with staff shortages, delivery difficulties, traffic jams before Dover and the large Farage garage car park, there's still no end in sight. And for 2 years now, the pandemic has obscured everything that really happened in the aftermath of Brexit, but this will not continue indefinitely. When we are finally out of the pandemic, which we are still not, by the way, then it will really become clear what damage Brexit has done and what it will do in the future. Brexit was the free choice of 52% of the people who voted on the day of the vote. And even if we can always regret that the young people in particular didn't even go to the vote, that's a fact. That's how democracy works. But nonetheless, the majority of people in the UK did not vote for Brexit here. Only the people who went on the day of the vote. I just wanted to clarify that again, because the Brexit friends very often misrepresent that one. And because some people have a very short memory, it has to be said again that the people of Scotland and Northern Ireland did not vote in favour of Brexit in the majority. And in Wales, based on everything we know today, one can assume that the majority of Welsh people didn't vote for Brexit. But there are a lot of English people living in Wales. And when Boris Johnson talks about free decisions by peoples today and has the audacity to compare the Ukrainian people's struggle for freedom with Brexit, then he also has to put up with the fact that questions are repeatedly asked about the freedom of the Scottish population and the freedom of the people of Northern Ireland in terms of their freedom of choice for the future and maybe for Ireland. Unfortunately, I have to disagree with my Scottish friends who keep writing that England occupies Scotland like in Northern Ireland. Legally, this is not the same case. Scotland has entered into a treaty with England, but there's also the point where I say that the situation for the end of this community would also be completely different. If you get together on a contract, then you can also cancel such a contract again. And that, I believe, would be the right of the Scottish people, without the consent of the British government. But that is still the case for the courts. Unfortunately, it's also become very quiet about the independence movement in Scotland. Here in Germany, we haven't heard anything about it for some time now. I'm curious how this will develop further. Of course, I know that Nicola Sturgeon has already said that nothing will happen during the pandemic. But all the easing is there. all the restrictions are gone. And of course, war overshadowed many issues in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine overshadowed everything here as well. And I hope the Scottish government will present their plans one day. As soon as there is finally something to report again, I will certainly also make my comment on that. But for the moment, of course, the Russian war against Ukraine, and by that I mean Putin's war against Ukraine, obscures many other issues. And there are actually people who complain that I still talk about anything other than the war. But that's what this channel is for, to talk about all the important issues that are currently pending in Great Britain, and not to let one issue cover everything, as some parts of the British government probably wants very much at the moment. But of course, our eyes are on the Ukraine. And of course, we all stand by the Ukrainian people, the sensitive ones of us at least, and thus Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. But what we can do as Europe is unfortunately limited. And that's why we can only hope that Vladimir Putin will eventually realize that he's not getting anywhere and is finally ready for real negotiations. Until then, here in the rest of Europe, we only have hope. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.